Hello. Hello. Hello, everybody. This is Chris Classic doing the Midnight podcast. Thank you guys for spending the night with no spending the night bag. Hope you guys had a wonderful work day. If not, thank you for chilling with me. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. Shout out to Jay-Z. I hope everything is okay. Hear you, but don't see you. Okay, I got you. I'm just trying to make sure everything was good. I hope you guys, like I said, are having a wonderful day. And you guys know that before I go on, let me get my promo game down real quick. Excuse the noise in the background. All right, so my next two shows that I will be a part of, it will be A Made to Remember. That is at Appleton, Wisconsin, May 28th. Good wrestling show. Like I said, we tore the house down in April of this. Well, in April this month. I know it's ending, but we tore the house down in Winneconne. We're gonna do it again in Appleton. So make sure you guys get your tickets. Very good show. Very good entertaining show. Like I said, I've been going to Wisconsin regularly since I want to say their first show was in October. Like I said, it's real feel good show. Also, June 18th, Kingdom Come. C3 Ultimate Wrestling is back. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a better ticket system than the PayPal, but we are back. We have a few matches that are already announced. I have to edit to announce more. I had to do a finalized card. So I wanted to make sure I had everything. So just give me a little bit more patience and we will have that. Also, make sure you check out the website, c3ultimatewrestling.com. Also, check out our YouTube page for the Take It Home podcast. Also, check out our YouTube page for C3 Ultimate Wrestling. Like I said, I just hit the milestone of 100 subscribers on the Take It Home podcast. I'm proud of that. You know, I love my small victories. I treat them like they are big victories. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. As far as the live thing, I'm still trying to get the gist of it. I'm trying to make sure I have things that you guys see me clearly. I'm trying to understand the thing of editing and everything like that. So I'm glad that you guys are currently working with me and working with me with my patience. I'm trying to start on time. I kind of started on time today. It's a lot of things we're setting up, you know, especially with everything that's going on. So without further ado, let's talk about the topic of the day. The topic of this podcast was I wanted to address the state of women's wrestling. I wanted to say how I felt about it, things I liked, things I didn't like, and showing appreciation. Not a lot of it. I'm not going to be here long, but I did want to speak about this situation. Now, we aren't. It's always when I start something, everything wants to cut on. But anyway, um, we aren't that far removed to where women's wrestling it was not promoted as heavy as it is now. And even on the independent scene, a lot of people will say, okay, well, you've always had women on the independent scene and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, you did. You had a lot of women that would make the name on the independents and stuff like that. But at the same time, they weren't that heavily featured, if you get what I'm saying. So, especially me coming up, like I said, we're not that far from a move where I used to go to wrestling shows and uh they'd have one female wrestler and she'd actually face the girlfriend of the booker or another wrestler or something like that. And when I say she girlfriend, that means that she was untrained. So they're trying to train her for a short wrestling match because the other lady's opponent may have canceled or they just wanted to have a woman's match because it is an attraction and it started off as an attraction. Now it's like a big movement and I'm happy for that. So let me say that before anything. I don't want you guys to think I'm just here complaining about it or whatever like that. But I used to see that these guys or women try to train a woman for like a few minutes so she can have a match with a trained, quote unquote, trained wrestler. And it was kind of frustrating to me because it was like, we don't know if this person is even going to be in the business tomorrow. And then we're going to sit here and we're just trying to make a quick buck by having her try to do what we do. And most of the time it doesn't look good. It looks crap because they're not putting their all into it. They're nervous, they're shaky, they're anxious, and everything like that. And they shouldn't do that. I was like, the best thing to do is either have the woman go against the guy or just do a segment. You don't have to do this kind of stuff because that's how people get hurt in the long run. But like I said, on the independent circuit, you've always had women. And sometimes, like I said, you've had a lot of women who went against guys because there wasn't a lot of women that were wrestling or were available because either they were in other shows or they were not interested because some guys were real life Myrons in in a locker room. And, we talked about this before. Saw a lot of women, they just got out of wanting to wrestle because they didn't want to deal with perps. And I really feel like nowadays guys are stepping up more to protect these women. So that's a good thing. But going back into it, it was always an interest to have women wrestling and stuff like that. But now you fast forward and you see how it's a big thing. And it's like kudos to all the women that stuck it through. And kudos to the women that even tried to attempt it because, it wasn't always safe. It wasn't always like a safe space. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's still a safe space for women. It's 100% safe. It's more safer than what it is, especially with social media and how people can turn around and they can speak about situations and people can pick a side or people can investigate. So shout out to a lot of people that realize that these women want to wrestle and they can wrestle better than us sometimes. And I'm not saying that as a handicap or a crutch or anything like that, but you have a lot of passionate people. As you guys know, I started wrestling because of my wife. And my wife, she wrestles when she wants to. She's very good at it, but she has passions of her own. But the thing is, when she does go into it, she wants to practice. She wants to look at clips. She wants to study. She wants to make sure she's the best at what she does. And I commend her for that because I'm like that as well. I try to look at things. What can I do different? What can I do to change the game and things like that? The last match she had, she went against me. I won. But what we did was very special and it was magic. And I'm not just saying that because that's my wife. Some of you guys don't know is that my wife actually she was the first LOW heavyweight champion. And I wish I had the picture, but I didn't have it and I didn't want to start late. It's somewhere in his house. So please believe that I have that picture. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna share it one day. So the thing is, she was wrestling majority men most of the time because there wasn't a lot of women out there that wanted to wrestle or were available to wrestle. So a lot of these women who do train, they train with a lot of men to learn the ropes and everything like that. And then even despite that, some guys don't even give women a chance. Some people won't give women a chance because they say you're just a girl or whatever. This was only a couple years ago, guys. I don't want you guys to think like this was 10 years ago. It was way less than that. And you still have that stigma and you still have that stain with some people with women wrestling and stuff like that. Now, me myself, I have my own reserve on how intergender matches should go. But other than that, it's hard to book women now. And kudos, people are respecting and they're starting to book a lot of these women. And I'm trying to book a lot of women for a lot of my shows, and it's like, man, you gotta try to talk to them a year before your show start to make sure they can even come to your show. And that's good. That's real good that they are getting the respect. There are a lot of shows, Shimmer, Stardom. There's a lot of shows overseas, a lot of shows here, Mission Pro, a lot of companies that are having like all women wrestling shows and stuff like that. That wasn't that was thought about a lot of times. You think it's old shows like Glow and stuff like that, and then when that fizzled out or whatever like that, you fast forward and then you're just happy to see like a lot of women making a name for themselves. And not only are they making a name for themselves going against women, but they're also going against guys. Even on the mainstream level, you're starting to see more things. And the thing is, it's all about where you saw it is where you have an opinion on how women's wrestling has evolved, right? Because I know a lot of people talk about Impact, right? And they talk about what it was and what it used to be and all of that stuff. But I want to give credit to TNA or Impact or whatever you want to call it, because they had a knockout division, and the knockout division was a lot of women they invited in or they signed, and you had your Velvet Skies, your Angelina Loves, Gail Kim was already there, Miss Jackie or Jacqueline, as you guys know, she was already there. It was other women. It was just like a flourish of women. Awesome Kong. They had all of these women come in at one time, and they called it the knockout division. And at one point, the beautiful people, they had like some of the highest segments in TNA. But even then, they built the division around one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. That is Miss Gail Kim right here. Now, Gail Kim is in my top 3. I know that's a small list, but she's in my top 3 of greatest female wrestlers of all time. And a lot of people talk about how WWE dropped the ball. They really dropped the ball on Gail Kim. Now, I know she is a women's champion. I don't believe she won it a second time or whatever like that. I remember she left. She was in TNA, made a bigger name for herself in TNA. Her feud with Awesome Kong, one of the best feuds to happen in TNA. And then she came back, and then I thought she was going to make history by being the first women's WWE women's TNA Impact, and then the WWE Divas champion, but they didn't. Maurice was the champ at the time, and she beat her. Eventually, Gail Kim got frustrated, and then there was like a battle royal that happened. I don't know if you guys remember. It was a battle royal, and you see Gail Kim eliminate herself by going under the bottom rope instead of over. And that was the end of her WWE career. Now, she went back to TNA, won more championships and stuff like that. But yes, to me, she is still one of the greatest women wrestlers of all time. I want to give her credit. I know they have like the old school wrestlers, the Medusas and the Luna Vachons and everything like that. And you have a lot of these old school women. You can even talk about the valets. You can talk about, I'm not going to say this other person because this person's dealing with stuff. Miss Elizabeth. You have a whole bunch of women. Sherry, sensational Sherry Martel. She was also a wrestler as well, if you guys didn't know. So you do have a lot of things that a lot of women had to prove even back then. So then you fast forward now, and it's a lot it's special, and I'm not saying it wasn't special back then, because you cherish these women, because these women did pave the way for these women now going into it. You do have a lot of women who are wrestling, and like I said, they are difficult to book now because their schedule is crazy. Like, you'd be lucky if you can book a woman for the next few months, especially for the summertime with uh COVID restrictions are being lifted and everything like that. It's definitely hard to try to get a woman or any other woman to like wrestle, because like these, AEW, they having their thing with the On Heart Cup, uh the tournament, and then the other things that they do, the tournaments and the tag tournaments and everything like that. You're going to have a lot more tournaments coming out from other shows and stuff like that. And like I said, the evolution of women's wrestling, it is different. It is great. I applaud them for that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a big fan of every aspect of it, but it's here. And I'm glad that they do have their moments to shine. When I say I have my reserve, I would say like more towards the intergender matches, right? As a person who isn't a fan of intergender matches, who also on the flip side had a whole show promoting intergender matches. Yeah, I have certain things I do and don't like about it. Everybody has a fighting chance, so I don't want people to forget that. But I did feel like my show and a couple other shows, I felt like with psychology and stuff like that, I felt that sometimes psychology is out the window, not even just for women's wrestling, but for wrestling in general. So I'm saying, like, when you have a guy that is 300 pounds going against a woman who's 100 pounds, and this 100-pound woman is German suplexing this guy, or let alone bumping this guy consistently and stuff like that, I don't be rocking with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be dope. Like, you can do it a certain way where both people look fun and both people can go over. You know what I'm saying? But some people don't rock it like that. Like I said in a previous video and other videos, that wrestling is very subjective. So some people feel like, hey, we'll throw psychology out the window. We want to get paid. We want to do this. We want to go viral. Because even if you look at YouTube videos, you look at how many millions of views that women get. You have a lot of women matches that get 10, 12 times the views that men matches do now. Like, even with Title Match Wrestling, shout out to them. They have a lot of women's matches and stuff like that. And they also promote like a lot of the ladies' night events that happen on Fight or whatever show or anything like that, whatever deal they have. I'm not 100% sure. But then when you look at the videos and the views and stuff like that, they're getting millions of views from intergender matches or one-on-one matches and stuff like that. So a lot of the wrestling market, they pick up on that. So they're like, okay, well, I got to book this woman because people will pay to see them. Or if I go on YouTube, I can get a lot of views and I can get a lot of money and stuff like that. And it works for some and it doesn't work for many neither. Like, I book Renee Van Peebles and KO Kendra. Shout out to them. They do wonders on YouTube and stuff like that. And, they work hard for that and stuff like that. So it is good to see that women wrestling does get noticed, to the fact that they can get millions of views. Well, let alone people can book them for all women's event. It doesn't matter what kind of situation it is, it's going to get a lot of views and stuff like that. Shout out to them, man, because we come along. It wasn't that, I'm going to keep saying it, it wasn't that long ago where women's matches, not even just on WWE side, women's matches weren't that long, or women couldn't show exactly what they do, or they was just in the battle royal at the beginning or the end of the show because either somebody canceled or somebody didn't want to lose to a woman. Now you have a lot of people that do not mind losing to women. They're like, hey, we'll put them over. Now, even then, up a notch, you have women that are the top champion at a company. And I'm not even just talking about the women's championship. I'm talking about just the world title. well, let's say main title. I hate saying world title. Everybody says world title, but you have so many people nowadays. They have women champions that carry. They are the face of the company and stuff like that. And a lot of people get inspired, and a lot of people like that kind of thing. You know, KO Kendra, she went against the C3 wrestling champion at Guys versus Gals, and it was the main event. Miles had to cheat, but great match. So, like I said, we are at a point where a lot of women are getting their just due. Now, the heck is that? Anyway, but you have a lot of women that are doing great. There are a lot of them that are doing wonderful. Now, I criticize a lot of stuff that goes on with wrestling on both sides. But anyway, sorry about that. It's always something, yo. But we're gonna power through it. I don't know what the heck's going on. That or they were that or they were put in gimmick matches that made women look in an unfavorable way. Yes, I agree with that. Now I'm gonna touch more on that because 9 times out of 10, I'm probably gonna move my whole setup because I don't know what's going on with the wash machine. Man, it was definitely trying to have a good spot. But anyway, going back to that with wrestling, yeah, I'm gonna move. I don't know what's going on. Okay, everything is fixed. Like I said, I'm sorry guys. I'm trying to do these 100% without interruptions. And it's very difficult. So thank you for rocking with me. So anyway, going back into what Shy Guy said, he said that or they were putting gimmick matches that made women look in an unfavorable way. Now, I will say this: I get exactly what you're saying, but I wouldn't say that they were in an unfavorable way, especially to a certain demographic. But yeah, WWE, they are late to the party about like women's wrestling and stuff like that. They are very late. And the thing is, they don't owe anybody an explanation for that at all. But yeah, with even the Attitude Era on how like people say they want the Attitude Era back. And I'm like, if you want that back, then you want certain matches that involve women that didn't involve wrestling. You want a lot of the sexual things and stuff like that that the women had to do or whatever like that and they had to partake in and stuff like that. Now a lot of people are saying they were frustrated with it or whatever like that. But me being a young man at the time, I kind of didn't see a problem with it. Now I see it now because I wouldn't want my wife or anybody that I know participating in those kind of crazy matches and stuff like not matches, but crazy segments that they were doing and stuff like that. You had a lot of women that wanted to partake in a lot of matches and stuff like that, but they couldn't. And, you know, even outside of the Attitude Era, you did have a lot of matches that were called the Piss Break. And those were for those were the women's matches, unfortunately. Those were the women's matches, unfortunately, was they were called the piss breaks. And it's not their fault, but it was just like you knew that WWE, they didn't really give them a chance. They didn't really give them an opportunity to show what they can do. You know, it always been like a multi-woman match. Oh my God. And if it was like a holiday, 4th of July, 5-on-5, Let Freedom Ring match. I just made that up. But you know that it would be a crazy spot, a superplex spot, or something crazy. I remember one time it was like a Christmas match, and then like all the faces they dosey do, and they basically was like arm in arm, and they kept going in circles, knocking over heels, and I was just like, who made this? Like, who wrote this? Like, why would somebody care about that? And even in like WrestleMania and stuff like that, if their matches weren't pulled, the matches were like very short or it was like meaningless. I remember, was it the WrestleMania 25th anniversary? They brought back all these women who used to wrestle for them, and they all came out together, and you didn't even see like who everyone was. Like they were trying to announce it, but at the same time, it was like, who are these people? Like, oh, that looks like such and such, but I don't know. Oh, they're eliminated. Oh, it would have been nice to see if it was them. So, like I said, WWE has been late to the party because even around this time, the knockouts, and even like on the independent scene, you see like Candice LeRae, you see Mercedes Martinez, you see a lot of these women making a name for themselves on independents, going against mostly guys and women and stuff like that. And the WWE, they were still doing swimsuit competitions, and they were having like intergender matches, but they were more comedy based. It wasn't like something that was making people love women's wrestling or it being serious. And then even when Trish Stratus started taking the wrestling game more serious, because first, you know, she was just a valet and then she was the model and stuff like that. And she wasn't that good, and she improved incredibly. Then, you know, a lot of people started saying, look at these women wrestlers. Now, with WWE being as big as it is, people are going to say, okay, well, they were the first, or they were revolutionary or whatever like that. But I can't say that, unfortunately, because if you look at the independents, or if you look at what Impact did at one point, when you had the knockouts, you had the knockouts championship and stuff like that. You had solid women that were wrestling, and it wasn't just 5-minute matches. You know, they had their first women's main event with Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong. You talk about how great of a match that was. And man, gotta give the flowers to Awesome Kong as well, man. Like, she was a villain. It's not a lot of women villains like that to have a match against Gail Kim of all people, who I said is in my top three, and they did a great job. It's even the China versus Dean Malenko storyline. Yeah, it's like even with China, right? China was like she was more believable though because she was like bigger than the guys. So a lot of the guys. So when she was having matches with like Jeff Jarrett or Dean or Eddie, Chris Jericho, it was understandable because of how big she was and it was presentable. So if she can body slam or you can have her doing that, then that's I can understand because of how she looked and whatnot. Even I don't know, look it up if you have time. I remember when she clotheslined Rikishi and Rikishi did his super duper flip bump. Now, if you know Rikishi, he does that for a lot of clotheslines and stuff like that. And it made her look good and stuff like that. So with China was like one of those ones that seemed like she was believable. Like people would pay good money to see her go against guys because of her physique and how she looked and everything like that. People wanted to see something like that. You wanted to see if she can body slam somebody or she can take them out and stuff like that. And she's done a lot of stuff with men and with women. So China was one of the ones. You guys know what I mean when I say that. So going back to even like WWE, right? So Luna, exactly. Like I learned more on Luna when I watched Dark Side of the Ring, and it's funny. It's so random. Her son was on Hell's Kitchen van, and I watched Hell's Kitchen. I had no idea, and they look alike. But yeah, to see that woman cared so much for the wrestling company, the wrestling business, and how Vince and them treated her and stuff like that for Sable of all people. No, no shade, but we know that she didn't care about the business. That just showed you what WWE was about. And the thing is, WWE, they're not the only company that does stuff like this. It's just that they're under more scrutiny for it because they do it so constantly or whatever. You have a lot of uh, road agents and stuff like that look at all kind of magazines and they look at these matches and stuff. They look at these people. Hey, this person, I can make them a star. Or they look at an athlete. WWE are doing their NIL thing, next in line program. I'm not even against that, to be honest with you. If you want a certain thing, why not have it to where you have college athletes or whatever like that? They are want to be a wrestler or something like that. I think that's actually a good thing. That's for another topic. But yeah, WWE was late to the party with women's wrestling to the forefront. But when they showed out, they showed out. I will say that because you had all of these matches that weren't that long or short matches or feuds that nobody cared about or repetitiveness and stuff. And then it was just like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And I'm saying mostly this was like the women's championship, the end of the women's championship, beginning of the Divas championship era. And it was like you had talented women like Layla and Michelle McCool and Mickie James, who was also a top person. You had all of these people that could deliver and that could do a great job. But at the same time, it was like, okay, well, let's put them in these high school storylines. I'm like, these women are clearly grown or whatever like that, and they don't need to do that. Like everybody doesn't have to have the same storyline. But then when it goes to like a high school thing, and I think it was like more shots to trying to be like the beautiful people at the time because beautiful people was like the hottest thing in Impact Wrestling or TNA one time, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it Impact. But going back to how that is, WWE they had a women's revolution. And I want to say this real quick. The women's revolution really started more towards NXT. And a lot of people credit Paige. A lot of people credit Paige for that, because Paige had a different look and things like that. And a lot of women looked up to her and stuff like that. But I did want to say this, like before NXT, like the presence of strong, great women wrestlers and stuff like that. Before that, we let's not forget who Paige went against to win the NXT Women's title, because to me she was one of the greats. She was a great wrestler too, and I think that her character was what kind of stuck. I think of people like sometimes people like to criticize people of their character. They just like to look at the character and be like, oh, okay, well, they suck because I don't like what they do or their character or anything like that. But Emma was a very good wrestler. And then if you've seen that match with her and Paige, she really did carry Paige. A lot of you guys know what I mean when I say that. Now, I understand she did the little Z thing and popping bubbles, and then she was paired with Santina Morella, who was also comic relief as well. But Emma was a pretty good wrestler. Emma was solid, and I think like you could see what she was doing before she got released by WWE. But then even what she shows what she's doing on Impact, and she's the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champion with Madison Rain. But Emma was a very good wrestler, and I just wanted to give her credit out of anything because, like I said, with the women's revolution and everything with Paige and like the AJ Lee storyline and stuff like that, her and like Emma had a great match. Was Tennille Dashwood now, but she did her thing and she put on when they gave her the opportunity. Shout out Atlas, I see you watching. But yeah, I just wanted to give her flowers as well, because everybody thinks of Revolution. They think of Paige, AJ, Lee, Sasha, Bailey, Becky, Charlotte, Lexa. Like you think a lot of these women and everything like that who were NXT and then transitioned to WWE. And like I said, WWE was like very late to the party for trying to push women wrestling and stuff like that. And it was just to the point that we were like looking at Stephanie, and when Stephanie was coming in and she was doing she was doing promos about it, we were like, where have you been? Like, y'all, come on, man. Like, and they low-key saw how big women's wrestling was, and they decided to capitalize on it and finally give women a fair shake. Now, under the circumstances of how they did it, I would have did it a little better, but it's WWE at the end of the day. You guys remember? Let's talk about this pay-per-view, right? Okay, so I think it's dope that they have their own Royal Rumble, women's Royal Rumble and stuff like that. They have their own women's Money in the Bank match. They have their own women's Elimination Chamber. Even Hell in a Cell and cage matches and stuff like that. That's dope. But the thing was, I felt like they should have put a little bit more emphasis on their pay-per-view. You guys remember the pay-per-view, right? When Evolution, I believe it was called Evolution. Now, as a person who was a fan of Evolution, the stable with Triple H, Batista, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair, I don't think this was a good name for a pay-per-view, especially if you want to emphasize on women's wrestling. You get what I'm saying? I just felt like, okay, you could have called it anything, but out of all the things to call it, you're gonna call it one of the staples that people still like and love to this day. And you wanted the women to go off of that and try to do something with it. Here it is here as I'm visiting the one of the websites. So I know it's not that clear. So you had this, and then like I said, Evolution. This definitely like evolving, and it's just like y'all are late to the party. Like people were already giving women their credit and flowers and stuff like that, and Impact and the independent scene and a whole bunch of stuff. And then even Lucha Underground, right? Lucha Underground had a whole bunch of matches that involved women and men. They had the trios matches, and then you had the Gift of the Gods Championship, and then you had like women like Ivelisse and Cobra Moon, who's also Thunder Rosa. You had a lot of women, Taya, Valkyrie. You had a lot of women that were going against guys and also involved in tags and trios matches and stuff like that. And it was just like WWE came out of nowhere. I don't want to say out of nowhere. Like I said, they looked at the market and they seen what was big, and it was women's wrestling and stuff like that. So they decided to do this. And then Stephanie comes out of nowhere, and then she's like, oh, well, we're going to have a first ever all women's pay-per-view. Now, if you are somebody who does not watch, who doesn't only watch WWE, you knew that this was a lie. You knew that spots in Illinois, spots overseas and stuff, they've already had all women's pay-per-views. Even TNA were doing things. I forgot what they were called, like one night onlys, but it was like knockout invasions and stuff like that. But since it's WWE, they don't have to think about everybody else or any other company or whatever like that. And to be honest, with this pay-per-view, in my opinion, it wasn't that good. I thought that it was okay. I didn't think that it was something that we like, and there hasn't been another one since. Is it the women's fault? Of course not. It's not the women's fault. I really wish that it should have been. I'd have started first with a different name. I don't think that name should have. I don't think they should have picked that name. Maybe Revolution or something like that. So like Revolution, like Women Revolution, something like that. You say Evolution. It's a mystery. But going off to that, just thinking about that kind of stuff is just like, bruh. And then the matches, like I can only remember like a few matches. And honestly, I looked at the match card before I went to work today because I wanted to speak more on it. I kind of forgot. And then the thing was, it really was just to make a pay-per-view revolving around Ronda Rousey because Ronda Rousey was the women's champ, the Raw women's champ at the time. So that's what it was. It wasn't really I don't want to say wasn't really a celebration of women or whatever like that, but I felt like they could have emphasized more on like deeper storylines and stuff like that so people can remember. So the main event was Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella, and Nikki Bella just recently returned with her sister or whatever like that, just for like this pay-per-view, aka a bag, aka a paycheck. So it wasn't much to remember. Like I said, I want to say NWA or ROH ran. Yeah, it was a lot of companies that actually ran all women pay-per-views and all women wrestling shows before WWE. But it's like I said, WWE was late to the party, but they can say we're the first to do this because they can always clean it and say this is the first WWE women's pay-per-view. So they can spin it like that or whatever. But what I will say is they have been doing a great job with the 4-horse women. And it's kind of hard to like try to have 4 people that were in the limelight for a while. They really were in a while. And then you even had women who I'd say slipped through the cracks, like Alexa Bliss, who was a multi-time women's champion and stuff like that. Carmella, multi-time women's champion. Naomi, multiple times. Now, with Naomi, I will say this. I do think that Naomi could be a main eventer if they stop playing. And I think that's the thing. They keep on finding ways to hold Naomi back. Naomi has a character that is larger than life. The people love it. The people want to see more of it. And even when she was champion, she like put like lights on the belt or whatever like that. Now, I don't really like defacing belts and certain things, but the way she did it, it worked. And I do feel like they could have did more and they could have still did more. Now, with these women tag championships, these are hot potato titles. So I don't want to say, I don't really care for those titles because they don't make it legitimate. And they can, but they choose not to. It's just straight hot potato title. I think they had it good with Sasha and Bayley. And then after that, it's been certain people who just get together and then they make a name at the end. Kabuki Warriors. I know you guys remember that with Kairi Sane and Asuka with Paige as the manager and stuff like that. So it's just a hot potato title. That's it. It's like they can make it legitimate. They just don't want to. I thought Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, they were good as a unit, but then they ended that too. So now it's Naomi and Sasha. 9 times out of 10, when they lose that, they're probably going to feud with each other. So that's going off of the WWE end. And then even you see Bianca. You see Bianca Belair as the person who was the on the title screen of the live. And you see what she has accomplished in such a short amount of time and how she's really one of the top women wrestlers in the world right now. And then you just sit there and you smile. And it's not even just not just the representation thing. It's just like this lady is really growing in front of your eyes and stuff like that, and the sass and the charisma and everything like that. And I remember when what's his name, Sam, some dude I don't care about. He was on the panel. He said that Bianca was nothing but a ponytail, and I was just like, dude, like, why you got to be a hater? Like, this is the future right here. And even Rhea Ripley is the future too. Like, they're doing good things and stuff like that. Everybody doesn't have to be a champ. So you do things to work around these people or whatever like that. So women wrestling, excuse me, as a whole, it is good. It's growing as a whole. And like even AEW, right? AEW, they're breaking standards for women wrestling, regardless if people like it or not. Women bleed. Women have uh women have street fights, cage matches, lights out matches. Now, I do think that they have a lot of them. However, at least like it's not like a watered down thing. Now, that could be a good and a bad thing. For the wrestler in us, a lot of us enjoy those kind of things. Some don't, some do. Some sponsorships do, some don't. But you see what they're doing, and you see their women division having larger than life characters. You have even like Britt Baker, right? Like she started being an evil dentist basically, and had a sass to her, and people like Thunder Rosa and stuff like that. Like it just get popular, and people just start to like them and stuff like that. And people are coming along to even liking Jade for who she is and what she's doing and stuff like that. So wrestling, women wrestling as a whole, it has grown and it's continuing to grow. And it's like the big thing that people are paying and want to see on pay-per-views and even fight TV and things like that. Like I said, YouTube, you have millions of views. You might not even know who this woman is, but they're bringing views to the channel. They're bringing views to whatever they're doing. That's helping them get booked. That's helping them be difficult for me to book them because I can't book them for shows and stuff like that. And speaking of being only a few years short of what women used to go through, you had women that didn't wrestle but knew how to get around to get what they wanted. Now they don't have to do that, but that's your choice if you want to. Not saying I support it or whatever like that, but you have a lot of master splinters in the locker room. A lot of the wrestlers know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna say the whole term, but some master splinters. But now women are standing up for themselves, and some don't realize they don't have to do that kind of stuff. They can just wrestle. They can find a way. I just don't want enabling. Like I said, I'm just not a big person on enabling certain people to just come in and wrestle because they're viral or they look a certain way. I'm like, if they take the business serious, then why not have them wrestle? They can wrestle. Why not wrestle? These people just doing anything and just booking women because they look good and stuff like that. It doesn't work like that. You should make sure you have a resume, just like if you want a guy to come in and have a resume. I've seen a lot of times where companies want to have a women's match so bad that they'll have the worst wrestlers, no shade to them, on the card just to wrestle. And they don't wrestle that good. And then you lie to them because you want them to come back because you want to have a women's wrestling match. You shouldn't do that. You got to think about your product. If something bad on your product, that might mess up your money in the future, whatever like that. You shouldn't just have one just to have it. But going back into women's wrestling and stuff like that, going back into how women was abused and misused. And then you look at women like sweet Georgia Brown, and then you hear the story of how she was treated on Dark Side of the Ring, and then you hear her children who kind of unsure of like who their father is and stuff like that, but have a clue or whatever like that. And they're going through all of this stuff, and she's just doing this to wrestle and to make money and stuff like that. And then having to burn her clothes because she just hated the sport so bad because of how it scarred her. That goes into what I was even talking about, mental health, on what wrestling can really do. Wrestling can really break you or whatever like that, especially if people misuse you and stuff like that. See this lady who was making history, being the first black women's champion and stuff like that, but then behind the scenes doing things she wasn't supposed to do. And other women that were also a part of it who made claims that they were going through it as well. So it's sad, but you know, now you can see what women go through where people actually book them for their skills and stuff like that. You know, looks are icing on the cake as well. Not gonna lie, but at the same time, now they have something like actual skill and stuff like that. Now you can say you booked some of the best women in the world or whatever like that. And like I said, they're winning the top titles and stuff like that. Some of the matches are okay from what I've seen, but who am I? I'm just Chris Classic. Um, Before I head on out, I also wanted to speak about like some women who aren't. I feel like they should get their flowers and stuff like that. Like I've been doing this already. I talked about Gail Kim. I talked about Emma. Talked about my wife. You got like women like Jazz. Jazz is a great person. Um, Inside and out. She's very fierce and stuff like that. She was a bully in WWE, and she's a dope person. When I did meet her, very dope. She remembered me. I feel special. But anyway, she's very dope. I remember reading stories either in the Jet or Ebony magazine, and it was about her and her husband, Rodney Mack. Shout out to him. Now, I didn't know at the time that they were even married, but I used to read the magazines that my grandmother had or whatever like that, and they were saying how she broke somebody's nose who was like giving her husband a hard time. And I was like, man, that's like hardcore or whatever like that. But even when she was in WWE, I liked Jazz. I didn't watch much of ECW, so I didn't see much of her stuff in there. But I like Jazz. I liked how she wrestled and stuff like that. And to see her not fold working for the number one company and stuff like that, that just shows you just how strong of a woman she is. And you have a lot of women that didn't fold, and you have a lot of women that wrestle for other companies and stuff like that. They're not folding. They're not letting nobody talk to them a certain way. They're not letting them bully them around. They're not letting these people manipulate them or anything like that. So shout out to her, man. She's like I said, very dope. Going back into wrestling, you have a lot of women wrestlers. They got wrestling companies. They got podcasts. They got TV shows. They got blogs. They got sponsorships. They got deals. You have a lot of things. And like I said, I grew up watching WCW and WWE. Now WWEF, they had the bra and panties matches and stuff like that. And obviously, me being a young man, I didn't mind seeing that because that's what it was. And then you go to WCW, they had all kind of mud matches. You had like who was it? Stacy Keibler versus Major Guns, who was part of Misfits in Action. If y'all remember that group, I'm showing my age again. But you had these kind of matches and stuff like that. Or you had like Stacy Keibler marrying David Flair. Like these were the shows that were these was the segments that women were going through. It wasn't a lot of solid women matches at the time or whatever like that. And now you fast forward, and now all these women have a chance to show their personality or what they can do, how they act, how they can talk, how they can do podcasts, how they can interview people, how they can get booked and stuff like that, how they can empower other women. It's dope. It's really, really dope. So, like I said, I tip my hat to these women because these women out here, they're trying to make a mark just like we are as men. We are trying to make a mark in wrestling. You know, something bad happens, it affects the whole company as a whole. And with women, something bad happen, it affects them. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to these women that are out here breaking barriers and stuff, winning championships and stuff like that. You know, do it with psychology, but a lot of these women are doing very good. So that's a good thing. I can't even book a lot for my show, man. I'll be trying, like for guys versus gals, the show where I beat my wife in a match. I, I had a lot of cancellations. Some people couldn't get back to me. Some people said they was already booked. Man, it's just a good thing because you know these women, they're not just having 5 minute matches. These women are having matches of the night and stuff like that. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to them. State of Women's Wrestling. if I had to say anything about it, it's good. You know, just like with wrestling as a whole, there's a couple cracks in the armor or whatever like that. But that's stuff that could be fixed, or it won't be, but it's still holding together. So shout out to these women, man. That's a good thing. Um, a few announcements before I go on. I'm probably going to find streaming, another way to send my audio. I don't think Podbean. I don't know. Maybe Spotify. I don't think Podbean is gonna work for me. No offense to them. I'm gonna try to figure out what I'm gonna do with that. So I don't know about Spotify, whatever like that. Like with a lot of these streaming services, they do want money and stuff like that. And with Podbean, they're saying like my audio memory is full. So I'm like, man, I just started. So I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with that. But other than that, I appreciate you guys for kicking it with me for an hour. Uh Shout out to Shy Guy, shout out to Atlas, shout out to everybody that watched, that tuned in. Shout out to the people who are going to tune in later. Um, Once again, if you haven't, subscribe to the Take It Home podcast. Also, subscribe to the C3 Ultimate Wrestling YouTube page. Check out the website, c3ultimatewrestling.com. Check me out on Facebook, Chris Classic Williams, or Twitch Classic 425. Once again, this is Chris Classic. Shout out to the women. Let's take it home. I am being held against my will on StreamYard. It Loki is telling me it's possible you logged out and nothing to me. I'm really being held against my will on StreamYard. This is crazy.